Hello and welcome to another San Diego Museum of Art tutorial. My name is Lila Yanacone and I work in curatorial affairs and education here at the museum. Today we are going to be teaching you a little bit about op art and even show you how to make an op art piece of your own. Now we're going to head into the museum to look at a couple examples of op art, as well as a few other pieces of work that exemplify optical illusions. This artwork is Vega by Victor Vasarely. It's a classic example of op art or optical art. But what does optical art really mean? Op art is a type of art that often uses abstract patterns, shapes, and various colors to stimulate the eye. It uses optical illusions to make 2D images appear 3D and can even fool your eyes into seeing things move on the surface of a work. The op art movement started in the 1960s, and surprisingly, most critics hated it. They thought the art was gimmicky because it focused on illusions. But when you really think about it, art from almost every era preceding op art used optical illusions. These artists employed an expansive variety of optical illusions. Today, I'm going to show you just 3 types of optical illusions, which you can see in pieces from our collection here at the museum. The first type of illusion is called linear perspective. We'll explore this in a woodblock print entitled Autumn Flowers in the Garden at Mukojima from 36 Views of the Eastern Capital by Utagawa Hiroshige. Although there are many factors that make up linear perspective, a main aspect includes using size of an object to create depth. Larger objects in the foreground seem closer to the viewer than the smaller objects in the background, and focus on the representations of people in this work. Compare the actual size of the people in the foreground to those in the background. I notice that the people in the foreground are bigger and therefore seem closer to me than those in the background. What do you notice? Let's move on to the second type of illusion, where an artist uses light and shadow to make objects appear 3-dimensional. We'll use this painting called Still Life with Quince, Cabbage, Melon, and Cucumber by Juan Sanchez Cotan to understand this illusion. Zoom in on the cucumber. You can see there is light on the left side and darkness or shadow on the right side. Now take a second to imagine if the gradient of light went away, meaning the whole cucumber was the same shade of green. Instead of seeing a 3D object, we would just see a green oval shape. The light and shadows are what indicate to our brains that the cucumber takes up space. This creates the illusion of depth. The last illusion we'll examine today happens when an artist uses dashes of color, intentionally not blending them, to create an image. Theodore Robinson does this in this work called The Edge of the Forest. Look carefully at the tree in the foreground. All you can see are small, individual dashes of paint. Now, step back. Look at the entire composition. Observe how your eyes mix the colors, creating recognizable objects. This illusion allows the viewer to do some work and to be an active participant in the art-making process. Now that we've looked over a couple types of illusions, let's take a deeper look into Vasarely's Vega. Since most of the art preceding op art still used optical illusions, you may be wondering, how is op art different? Unlike the art we just saw, which represents objects and items from real life, most op art is abstract. It often uses and embraces shapes and patterns as the main subject. Vega, the work we're looking at right now, is essentially a compilation of various shapes. The way Vasarely composes those shapes creates an optical illusion, making parts of the piece look as if they're bursting forward towards the viewer. In reality, the surface of the screen print is completely flat. We can also see how the size of shapes affects the depth we see. Which part of the piece looks closest to you? For me, it's the center of the screen print because that's where the circles are the biggest. Is that what you see too? Victor Vasarely is considered the grandfather of op art, but he didn't actually start out studying art. Instead, he studied medicine. His approach to art mirrored his study of science. Let me explain. When scientists conduct experiments, they use a fixed set of steps and rules to guide their actions. This ensures the results of the experiment are accurate. In Vasarely's art, he followed a specific set of rules and procedures which guaranteed the optical illusion actually worked. He had to create within a specific framework to produce the results he desired. The overlap between art and science is apparent in Vasarely's work, but was also distinct during the op art movement. Scientists of the time wanted to know how and why our brains reacted to optical illusions. Op art contributed to that line of scientific study. Op art is a fascinating style of art that instigates a variety of emotions. When I look at Vasarely's work, I feel energized and joyful. The colors are happy, the illusions are thought-provoking. But some op art can be disorienting and even overwhelming. Everyone will react differently to each artwork, and that's completely okay. How do you feel when you look at this work? Optical art is captivating, and I'm glad I got a chance to study some of it with you. Now, let's join Kara, a museum educator here at SDMA, to learn how to make your very own optical art piece.
Thank you, Lila, for introducing us to op art, the optical illusion in art history, and the vibrant compositions of Victor Vasarely. Hello and welcome. My name is Kara Deely. I'm a museum educator here at the San Diego Museum of Art, and today I'll be guiding you through a tutorial on how to create your own optical illusion using organic line and shape. Here's an example of the project we're going to work on today. We're going to be exploring vanishing point, or the point in the center where all lines come together and disappear. Materials we'll need for today are a white acrylic pen, a white pencil, and a black box. Another option is to use a white piece of paper, a pencil, and a black marker. So we're going to begin with our first step, which is to create our vanishing point. We're going to locate the center of our box and make a small point right in the middle. So a big dot right in the middle, and this is where all our lines that we will create will go right through the middle. So our next step is we're going to be creating our web. So creating lines that go from each edge of the box, and they don't have to be straight lines, but they just have to go right through the center. So some wobbly lines, organic lines, all the way to either side. So for our next step, we're going to be creating some concave and some convex lines in each one of our separate portions. So what I mean by convex lines is I mean lines that move away from our vanishing point. So like rainbows going up, and they're going to touch either side of our squiggly lines on either side. And our goal here is to fill up our entire portion with our convex lines. So filling all the way across. If you get to the edge of the box, that's okay. Just keep creating your lines until they go all the way into the edge of the box. Now for our second portion, we're going to be creating concave lines, or smiley faces, which means that they're going to be going towards our vanishing point. So once again, touching either side of our squiggly lines on either side, or our organic lines, and filling all the way across, trying to fill in all of our space, going all the way. And they don't have to be perfect. That's totally okay. And we're just going to be alternating our convex and our concave lines throughout all of our portions. Great, so we've created our web now in all of our portions with our convex and our concave lines. We're beginning to see our design start to warp and dip and move across our black box. So we're really starting to do a great design here. So for our next step, we're going to be filling in our portions, but before we do that, we're going to be making guide marks to show us where we're going to fill in with our white Posca. So how we're going to start doing that is for our convex lines, or our lines moving away from a vanishing point, we're going to go white, black, white, black, white, black. What we're going to do is we're going to be making marks on where we're going to fill in with our white pen. So just putting a little X's or whatever lines that you think help you remember where you're going to fill in. This will definitely help us. Since our design can become a little confusing and complex, it's easier to put in these guiding marks. So for our concave portions, we're going to do the opposite of our convex. We're going to be going black, white, black, white, black, white. So black and then white here, black here, and then white here, black here, and then white here. And then we're going to continue this process once again throughout our entire box. So you can see that it's okay if you mess up as well. If you make a mistake on your marks, you can also use a black Sharpie and to X out one of your little marks if you need to, and then you can put in your mark again if you need to put it somewhere else if you need to. Great, so now we have all our guiding marks to help us fill in our next step. All right, for our next step, we're going to be filling in our marked portions with our white Posca pen. Before we start filling in, we're going to warm up our pen. And how you do that is while having the cap on, make sure that cap is on really tight. We're going to give it a good shake. Shake, shake, shake with the cap on, getting the paint warmed up to be on our box. If you have a new pen, I suggest pushing it down on a piece of paper or whatever surface that you have to get the paint coming out. Great, so now we have our pen and we're going to start filling in our marked sections of our box. And you can do this in a variety of ways. You can start by outlining each of your portions, or you can go all the way across if you like that. Filling it in different ways. See which ways you can fill it in or what looks nice to you. It's up to you. Just making sure we're filling in our portions with our white pen. And this is a lot of work filling in all of this and creating all this design. So if your hands start to hurt, you can move your hands, do some squiggly fingers, hold them tight, let them loose. Think about your breathing as well. And then when you're ready, you can begin again to fill in your op art design. And then as you continue filling in, you can rotate your box to help you get a better angle at filling in. I also suggest resting your hand on the corner of your box and not laying your hand on top of the Posca paint while it's wet. Great, so now we're going to put on our second coat onto our design. So with our Posca pen, you're gonna have to get a good shake every once in a while, and then you're also gonna have to apply some pressure to get the paint to start flowing out of the tip of the pen. You may have to go over your sections again. If the paint is still wet, you may have to let it dry a little bit before applying your second coat. And then you also feel free to add a third coat later on. So once we've finished filling in our white portions of our design, you can use a black Sharpie to refine your edges or to make your edges of your portions a little bit more crisp. So just taking your Sharpie, you can fill in the black portions just to clean it up just a little bit. So doing the opposite almost, just around the edges of our white and our black portions, just to clean it up. If you have any stray marks or any portions that you need to change, Sharpie is a great eraser tool as it blends in to our box. So there we have it. We've created our op art box. Today we learned about and used vanishing point, or a point in the center where all of our lines came together and disappeared. We also learned about organic lines, which we used to create our web of our design. And finally, we used convex and concave lines, or the lines that go out and in, to create a warping and moving effect across our op art design.
Thank you, Kara, for that wonderful demonstration. And stay tuned for our next SDMA tutorial.